Hey everybody, so good to see you. Hope you're doing well. How was your Mother's Day? Hope you had a nice time. Hope everybody's healthy as we continue to stay at home. This week we're going to learn about what scientists know about tornadoes. We're going to start looking into storms over the next 3 weeks, tornadoes, hurricanes, and associated things. And so this week it's all about tornadoes. We're going to discuss tornadoes, how they form. We want to know how you can classify tornadoes, pretty much based on their wind speed, and of course discuss tornado safety. Um, Please make sure you follow along and answer the questions in this week's assignment. And if you decide to write an answer, right, always follow what it says right here. Always look at this point, and your written answer should have at least that in there. Of course, you can just take the practice quiz also to show your understanding. Hey, let's get started. Tornadoes are a very, very, very common form of severe weather that occur here in the United States. They occur everywhere, but they're highly associated with thunderstorms. A tornado is a violently rotating column of air that extends from the bottom of a thunderstorm to the ground. And you would think, if you look here, wow, there must be a lot of tornadoes in Florida, and there are tornadoes in Florida. But to be honest, there's another component called wind shear, which more readily sets up right here in Tornado Alley. When we look at Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, northern Texas, Colorado, even into Missouri and Iowa a touch, we're talking the areas where there's the most tornadoes in the world. They can occur everywhere, but really the United States is the epicenter of it. We're lucky, I guess. I don't think so. Tornadoes are found most frequently in the United States, about 1,200 a year, and they kill about 60 to 65 people, primarily through flying debris, and of course lead to a lot of injuries. But really, what they do is they devastate houses. They devastate what people's property look like. And on average, tornadoes move from the southwest to the northeast. They can move in any direction, of course, stop, change direction, depending on what the supercell above is doing. Typically, they move about 30 miles an hour, but some are as fast as 70 miles an hour. I don't think it'd be make any sense to try and outrun a tornado. The strongest tornadoes have rotating winds of over 200 miles per hour. And generally, they last maybe 10 minutes, but some can last hours and, of course, do even more damage. And here's a tornado, and you can see hitting the ground this violently rotating cloud. And, of course, right here, you can see the debris cloud. Look at all the stuff that it picks up and throws around. That's obviously dangerous. Um, how tornadoes form, though, depend on what we get there in Tornado Alley, this speed shear. Speed shear is this idea that if we had some air and at the bottom of the atmosphere, the air is moving this fast, but if you go up in the atmosphere to maybe 20,000 feet, it's moving this fast, that'll generally create a rotating, um, like a cookie roller of air across the surface of the earth. And you can imagine then that rotating air where we have the shear, where the wind's going this way and that way, and we get that spinning air. It's invisible, but if it's present in the lower atmosphere, and then a tornado, a thunderstorm forms, let's say this supercell. Notice what a supercell does. It's a huge vertical cloud. It leads up to 40,000 feet. It lifts that spinning column of air up very high into the thunderstorm, and it embeds in that thunderstorm not only the normal updrafts and downdrafts that you get in a thunderstorm that include hail and stuff, but it'll also include a characteristic that a 2 to 6 mile wide area of rotation can occur right inside of a supercell. We can see this little area down here. It's called a wall cloud that's associated with this. And usually it's always on one side of the storm, usually the southeast side of the storm. Well, there it is. This is called the hook echo. And in the southeast part of the storm, we can see the supercell forming. We can see right down here is that rotating column. So most of the updrafts and the rain and everything's up here. But right down here where there's not much going on, right? No weather here, a lot of weather here. That hook echo is what we can look at live on radar to give us an indication of potential tornado is being formed. Tornado itself is really made of a funnel cloud. The funnel cloud is a cloud that comes down from the supercell. It is got liquid in it. It condenses, so it looks like a cloud. When the funnel cloud actually touches the ground, that's when it officially becomes a tornado. So you can see funnel clouds, and you might get some winds, but they're not going to be as damaging as a full tornado. Of course, when they touches the ground, that gives us the debris cloud, and of course, they can last 10 minutes. But the size and shape, we really don't know much about it. We don't really know much about the size or shape or energy of a tornado until afterwards. We can guess that it might be big, but we really have to go in afterwards and look. Here's a tornado that's kind of winding out. This tornado, when they lose their intensity, the funnel will decrease in size. Notice it's narrow, and it gets this ropey appearance. That's a good sign that this tornado is going to stop. Doesn't mean another one won't form, but we would be certainly cautious of anybody living in this area if we saw that hook echo on radar. You might even hear the sirens that go off, or your phone might go off. The sirens are for people outside, not necessarily designed to wake you up in your house, but the fact that your phone sometimes is by your bed might wake you up. These are all good things to know because these things can happen anytime, overnight or during the day. We have weak, strong, and violent tornadoes. These weak ones are 88% of the time. They do damage, don't get me wrong, but generally the winds are less than 110 miles an hour in that rotation. The strong ones, about 11% of the time, they kill people. And they generally last a longer time. And when they get big and violent, notice they last over an hour. These violent EF5 tornadoes might last 2-3 hours, go 60 miles an hour. That might be a mile wide cone of destruction versus this, which might be hundreds of meters wide, versus this, which might be hundreds of feet wide. So these violent ones are the ones that get the most press, and they're very serious. All tornadoes are basically judged by their wind speed. But we can't really evaluate that live. We can't put a machine in there and have it tell us what the wind speed is. It would be destroyed. The huge pressure changes and the winds are it's untenable. It's not an easy thing to do. So mostly they look at damage afterwards to find out and classify it. The picture that you see in this slide is from an EF3 tornado. That means the wind speeds were going about 136 to 165 miles an hour. Notice a lot of destruction around that household, and pretty sad for the homeowners. But if they were safe, if they went down to the lowest part of their house, they were probably going to live through it and then just deal with the consequences afterwards. Should be familiar with this EF rating, 0 through 5. The 5s are the ones that get the most press. The biggest 5 that occurred was in 2011 in Moore, Oklahoma. This is an image of Moore, Oklahoma. Here's Moore, Oklahoma. And you can see from the satellite image right here, you can see the path that the tornado took, right? You can almost see. You can see up here the houses seem fine. Down here, there seems to be a dustiness, a debris level. Let's zoom in and see what happens down there. As we get closer and closer, we can see, oh yeah, look at this. We can see buildings that have been wiped out. Buildings right here that are literally flattened. Up here, buildings that are probably damaged but not destroyed. And 2-3 blocks away, we might be able to see buildings without any damage. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty sad also when you think about the human cost that anybody in this area that wasn't in a low-lying area is going to suffer. What we can see here, this occurred in 2011, this tornado. Look down here, even right here, not very far away, the damage. And as we zoom in, we see all sorts of debris all over the place. Cars have been picked up and tossed. You can see there's a lot of damage. And check it out. 1 year later, look what happened. 1 year later, obviously, what do? We rebuild. We survive. We get over and we're building this school over again. Notice everything's been cleared away. This is in the spring. Houses have been rebuilt. People have resettled based on insurance and how things go. We can survive these things as far as property losses as long as we're covered. So really what you want to do in safety situations, if you hear a tornado warning. You're going to hear the sirens, and what you want to do is just think about where is the lowest place I can go. Go to a basement inside a room without any windows on the lowest floor. You want to avoid the windows because if they break and that flying glass goes, that's going to be an injury. You want to get under something heavy and sturdy, like if you have a big table underneath that you can get underneath in the basement, do that. Maybe even cover your body with something to prevent damage, things flying into it, and of course protect your head. Don't stay in a mobile home. Most mobile home parks now will have a safety shelter. You should immediately go to those shelters. If you're in a car, don't try and outrun a tornado. And you really don't want to think it's not safe to go inside an overpass at the end because number one, there's going to be a lot of flying debris if a tornado comes, so you might get hit with something. Stay inside your car, put your seatbelt on. And number two, if you're under an overpass, that could literally those 200-mile-an-hour winds could lift you up and throw you. You just don't want to try that idea. You want to get to the nearest sturdy building as you think about your tornado safety. Just makes sense to be aware, and what you want to make sure is hopefully not have to ever deal with a tornado. Here in Wisconsin, we get about 20 to 25 a year, mostly EF1s and EF2s, but in 1984, Barneveld, Wisconsin was flattened by an EF5 tornado. They certainly do happen here. And what you want to do is be aware of what's going on with the tornado and have a plan and be safe. So, you guys have a plan about your weather and climate in your school. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you. I really appreciate you guys doing this work. And every time I get something submitted from you, it just makes me feel better because I know you're okay.